Hi there, it is September 7th, 2024, and this is Political Dharma with me, Alan Zundell. I've been covering the non-major party candidates for president in this election year, and this week the big news was that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now all in on supporting Donald Trump and asking his own supporters to vote for Trump in every state across the United States. I'll be talking about that story a little bit more, or maybe even a lot more, in a few minutes. And then I'm going to show you where things stand as far as it's getting close to the states to finalize who's going to be on their ballots. And I'll tell you where things stand at this moment, according to my best count, both for Kennedy as well as for the other non-major party candidates, such as the Libertarian candidate, the Green Party candidate, Cornel West, and the leading ones who have gotten the furthest in ballot access. And then finally, some updates on those other minor party candidates. So let's start off with the news about Kennedy. This week on Thursday, his campaign sent out an email, and you see there on your screen, if you're watching on video, I've highlighted this sentence: no matter what state you live in, I urge you to vote for Donald Trump. Now that's different than Kennedy was saying a week ago, where he was saying if you live in a swing state, that is where the election is expected to be very close between the Republican and Democratic candidates, then he's urging you to vote for Trump. But otherwise, he wanted you to vote for him in all the other states. Now he's changed to saying vote for Trump wherever you live, doesn't matter. That's what he wants his supporters to do. And a little further on in that email, he's saying, highlighted at the top of your screen if you're watching the video, President Trump needs to win in a landslide, both in the Electoral College and the popular vote. I'm going to get back to that other highlighted sentence in a minute, but I wanted to talk about this change before I did. Only, first let me bring up that last week, I was, among the questions I asked was, why, if Kennedy was withdrawing from swing states, why was he also withdrawing from states that were not swing states but leaned Republican, like Texas, Ohio, and Florida? And the Washington Post published an article about Kennedy's latest move on Thursday as well. You see the headline there: Robert F. Kennedy Jr. abandons plan to seek votes in uncompetitive states. And they had an interesting paragraph further on into the story, which was, you look there at the highlighted part, he has removed his name from ballots in Republican-leaning states, but he continues to fight for ballot access in Democratic-leaning states and also plans to remain on the ballot in Democratic-leaning states. So essentially what he is doing is saying that if you live in a state where a lot of people want to vote for Trump, he's going to take his name off the ballot so that there's no competition for Trump. But if you live in a state where you're ambiguous about Harris and the state is leaning toward Harris, well, he's going to give you the additional option of voting for Kennedy if you don't want to vote for Trump. But essentially, he's acting as a spoiler in this race. And there was some discussion in the comments on my last video about whether there was an inconsistency with Kennedy deciding to withdraw from, or at least suspend his campaign and withdraw from some states because he thought he might be a spoiler in this race. And people were saying, well, there's no inconsistency, but if you look back earlier in his campaign, that's what he said all along, that if I'm going to be a spoiler, I will withdraw from the race. Now, whether that's true or not is now beside the point, because he is actively playing the part of a spoiler for the Democrats and trying to help the Republican by his strategy of which states he's going to appear on and how he's urging people to vote. So that argument doesn't hold up anywhere. Doesn't hold up anymore. Kennedy's also saying that he, well, let me get back to that one about the second email so I can show you that second sentence again. Any confusion or division at this stage could undermine the very progress we've fought for. Now, what does that mean? Confusion or division? I'm not sure exactly how I meant that, but I read that as saying that anyone that has a contrary opinion, i.e. think for themselves or decide that Kennedy's urging them to vote for Trump is not the best way to go, is going to be regarded as divisive and causing confusion to other people. Well, Kennedy says that his move towards Trump is helping change Trump's campaign, not only picking up the issues that Kennedy has been promoting, but bringing the spirit of unity across party boundaries. I would say that there may be so, but it works both ways. I see a lot of the spirit of the MAGA movement, that is Make America Great Again, the Trump supporting movement, is now being translated over into Kennedy supporters. I look at Facebook groups that were created to support Kennedy's campaign, and I see there's more hostility. I see there's more shaming of people that don't want to get on board with this. I see that there are demands for loyalty, that you have to follow Kennedy unquestioningly or they're going to throw you out into the cold. And I see that this is more from my earlier video this week, but there's a reluctance to tolerate any kind of criticism whatsoever of what Kennedy has decided to do. Now, in my case, I don't mind. People can criticize me, but it seems like this is not a good direction to go for anybody that would regard themselves as an independent thinker or having their own ability to judge things. Following a leader blindly is, in my opinion, a bad direction to go in. So showing up even in the comments for the first time, maybe not a lot of them so much as I've seen elsewhere, but in the comments of my video last week, there was personal attacks, and there was people who could not abide the concept that maybe Kennedy had anything to apologize for, or that it would be a sign of weakness. I don't want to rehash that debate. I'm just pointing out that there was a change in tone in those comments, and not, in my opinion, for the better. So where do things stand at this point? Let me say this final point on it. Kennedy said he declared his independence from the two major parties, just under a year ago. So let's say about a year ago. For me, I decided to step away from the two major parties, and I didn't declare my independence, but mentally I made my independence 20 years ago. And I have seen nothing in the last 20 years that has caused me to change my opinion and think that this system could be rescued. Now, I've seen people who were Bernie supporters and have tried to work within the Democratic Party to change its agenda, and I applaud them. I think that's fine. If they can do it, we'd be better off for it. And if Kennedy and his supporters think they can change the Republican Party and make a change in Donald Trump, that's fine with me too. Go ahead and do that. But I also think we need people to continue to challenge the two-party system and find ways, if possible, to open it up to more competition, or we will not only be forever in the grip of this partisan divisiveness, but having only two parties, they're getting bought and paid for by billionaires across the board. And I don't think the Republican Party is any exception with the leadership of Donald Trump. My opinion, I know I'm going to be losing a lot of viewers over my takes on what's going on, but that's so be it. I'm going to be honest with you about what I think and where I stand. All right, so where do things stand on ballot access? Kennedy, since he has been taking his name off the ballot in several places, according to my best count so far, he's on the ballot still in 32 states, which is considerably less than he was, than it looked like he was going to be on. As of a few weeks ago, it sure seemed like he had a good chance to be on every single state's ballot, other than perhaps New York, where he had a tough legal battle, which he also thought he could win, and he's actually still pursuing that to try to get on the ballot in New York because it's a blue state, leans Democratic. And he's fallen behind in the number of states that he's on the ballot. I shouldn't say fallen behind, he's put himself behind. You see Chase Oliver there, the next column, the Libertarian Party candidate, is on the ballot in 46 states, according to my count. Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, is in 37. She's ahead of Kennedy as well. And then the rest of them are a lot lower. That 11 states is Randall Terry of the Constitution Party, and the 6 is Peter Sonsky of the American Solidarity Party. And then surprisingly, we have Claudia Dela Cruz and Cornel West tied at 17 states each so far. Claudia Dela Cruz is the candidate of the Party of Socialism and Liberation, and Cornel West is an independent candidate who has also formed a party, the Justice for All Party. They each have 17, which is, puts them in fourth place in terms of how many states they have ballot access on. There was some news about Kennedy's attempt to get off the ballot in swing states. Yeah, this is from Ballot Access News from just, yesterday, that in the appellate courts in both North Carolina and Michigan, they gave decisions favorable to Kennedy's attempts to get off the ballot in those states. North Carolina and Michigan are both swing states, and so Kennedy's trying to get his name off the ballot so that he won't compete with Trump. And he has apparently at least won a temporary success. It looks like he won't be on the ballot in Michigan, but it's still the trial, the lawsuit is still going forward in the North Carolina case. It's just that the judge said the early ballots going out to absentee voters don't put Kennedy's name on it. And all the states are getting really close to the deadline for getting their ballots finalized and printed. Also, I wanted to mention that the attempts to interfere with third-party politics here, the third-party candidates, is not limited to the Democrats. There was a story by the Associated Press. The headline here is GOP network props up liberal third-party candidates in key states, hoping to siphon off Harris votes. In other words, the Republicans are, I should say, people closely affiliated with the Republican Party, either in the past or presently, have been putting money into helping Cornel West in particular to get on the ballot in many of the states so that he could compete with Kamala Harris, because they're both, well, I think it's kind of when you call Kamala Harris left-wing, that's only a relative position. Cornel West definitely would take more votes from Kamala Harris than from Donald Trump, I think. And they've also been trying to help Jill Stein and who else was it? Claudia Dela Cruz to get on the ballot in some places because they think she might persuade some people. They might persuade some voters away from potentially voting for Kamala Harris. So this works both ways. Both parties are active in trying to either get third-party candidates on the ballot or off the ballot, and not leaving voters to decide for themselves who they have a choice of, but trying to put their fingers on the scales. Moving into the realm of public opinion territory, which I don't think is necessarily going to give you a lot of insight into what actually happens in the election, but this was interesting in its own sake. The Suffolk University USA Today political poll in late August asked the question that they always asked: if the election were held today and these were your choices, who would you vote for? Now look up it there at question number 10. The candidates that they included for potential answers were, of course, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, but they did not include Robert F. Kennedy. And I assume that is because Kennedy's decision to suspend his campaign made them think, well, there's no point in asking people if they intend to vote for him. But they also included Jill Stein, Cornel West, Chase Oliver, and that was about it. It's about what you'd expect: 47% or 47.5% for Harris, 43.33% for Trump, and then Jill Stein and Cornel West getting a little over 1%, and Chase Oliver at 0.7%. Now that's different than in past elections where the Libertarian Party candidate would have been a little higher, and an independent candidate like Cornel West would have been a little lower. But also interesting is that question number 11, who would be your second choice? Now that's not usually asked, and two interesting things here. Maybe a few interesting things, is that there were about a third of the voters said Kamala Harris, only about 15% said Donald Trump, but 23.53% said Cornel West. So all of a sudden, when people asked who their second choice would be, Cornel West, his response rate jumped right up. Now, I don't have an explanation for that. It's puzzling to me. And Jill Stein and Chase Oliver, they are tied at 8.82%, so about 9%. So, of course, second choice, the independent candidates do a little bit better, but Cornel West, I don't know how to explain that. One of those mysteries of polling that we'll never probably get to. Another polling question was how the Council on American Islamic Relations did a poll on their members, and they found out that American Muslim voters were tied in terms of whether they would vote for not Trump or Harris, but Harris and Jill Stein. Look up there in the, this article is from the Independent Political Report, and I think it's from, maybe a week or so ago. 29.4% of American Muslims responding to the survey plan to support Democratic Party nominee Kamala Harris, while a very close 29.1% intend to back Green Party nominee Jill Stein. Now, this is because Jill Stein has been very outspoken, but saying if she were elected as president, she would stop the weapons flow to Israel. Of course, Muslims are going to be more sympathetic to the Palestinians and want to see the carnage in that area of the world stop. So a lot of them moving over to Stein, still disappointed in the Democrats. And then it says Trump is down about 11.2%, and the rest also pretty far down there. That's a shift from before Joe Biden dropped out. You look down there, Stein was the first choice at that time, with about 36% of the respondents saying they preferred her as the main candidate, followed by Cornel West at 25.2%, and then only after them, candidate Joe Biden at 7.3%. So people somehow, I guess some Muslims are assuming that maybe there is a chance for a change of policy under Kamala Harris versus Joe Biden, but I don't see the reason for that, really. It's not clear to me that there is going to be any change, and I'm looking here for how to move back to my face. So the only other news item that I came up with about these other non-major party candidates was a story that was all over the place. So I'm not going to belabor it, but this was that Congressperson Alexandria Cortez, the well-known congressperson from New York on the progressive side, she, in one of her videos answering questions from followers, one follower asked, what to tell a friend who was thinking of voting for Jill Stein of the Green Party, and Ocasio-Cortez had a lot to say about that, and she was criticizing Stein for not really doing anything to grow the Green Party vote, and then Stein shot back, and it was one of those kind of tempest in a teapot stories where sound and fury to no effect. But I would agree with Jill Stein in this respect that Ocasio-Cortez did not seem to have a very good grasp on all the things Democrats do to keep the Green Party from growing, and she seemed uninformed, number one, about who the Green Party candidate was 4 years ago, which was not Jill Stein, and also about their attempts to get people on elected to lower offices, which they actually have done in nonpartisan offices, especially partisan offices, that is offices in which the party label is on the ballot, much harder because people are entrenched in that thought process that it's going to be a Democrat or Republican, so those are the only viable options. On the other hand, I think Ocasio-Cortez does have a point, and this is a question I've asked myself of the Green Party. What is your strategy about? Like, why? You keep saying you're going to go for 5% of the vote in order to get public funding and grow your party organization, grow your vote total, but it hasn't happened in, the last 30 years since Ralph Nader first ran. It's shrunk. It's gone up and down since then, but the party has not grown much, and they've never gotten close to getting that 5%, and it doesn't, to me, look like they're going to do it this year at all. So what really is the strategy here for growth? What is the point of running a presidential candidate? No problem with them doing that. I just would like them to think about, is this the most viable strategy? Not that you have to drop it, but is there some other thing that you're neglecting to do? Of course, they're working for ranked choice voting in most places, and that might help them, but not a guarantee either. So where am I at? Okay, that's about it for this week. Some of you have asked about the 5% thing. What does that actually get a candidate or a party if they get 5% of the popular vote in the election? I will be making a separate video on that. It'll probably be pretty short, and I can sum it up here very quickly, which is that it does not give any candidate automatic ballot access across the United States. They still have to go through a process of gathering signatures in almost all the states. That won't do a thing for them. It does get them public financing for their general election, and that might be a big help to any third party. I'm also going to do a video still on contingent elections and the Electoral College, because that question still comes up. Is it possible there could be a contingent election, and what does that mean? I'll be doing a video on that down the line somewhere as well. Thanks for watching. Oh, that ballot access information that I try to update every week, you can find it on my blog at politicaldharma.com, and you can also find it on my Patreon account at patreon.com/politicaldharma if you want to check out who's probably going to be appearing on your ballot in your particular state. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sticking with me. Those of you who have, we'll see how much my following shrinks in the next few weeks. But it's been a good ride. I rode the Kennedy wave when I thought he was really presenting a good challenge, and I did approve a lot of things he was trying to do. Almost all of his agenda is an agenda I could endorse. I'm just not so sure Trump is the vehicle for pursuing that agenda. That's my opinion. I'll think about it more, but we'll see. Thanks a lot. Bye.
With ease, I see the chains are breaking. We gained our focus. The moves we're making will prove to determine our self-worth as a passenger on this vehicle Earth.